Welcome to our interview session. We're looking to fill an Azure Cloud Engineer position, and we'll be going through a series of scenario-based questions to understand your expertise. Let's start. A company has multiple departments, and they want to manage billing and policies separately for each. How can you logically organize their Azure resources to achieve this?
I would use a combination of management groups and subscriptions. I'd create a management group for each department and assign a separate subscription to each. This hierarchical structure allows for targeted policy and budget application.
You need to implement a daily backup solution for a critical Azure VM. What Azure service would you use?
I would use Azure Backup. I would create a recovery service vault, define a backup policy specifying the frequency and retention period, and then associate the VM with that policy.
A small business has a simple static HTML website hosted on a traditional web server. They want to move it to Azure with minimal management overhead. What PaaS service is a good fit?
Azure App Service is an excellent fit. They can deploy their website to a web app without having to manage the underlying operating system. For a purely static site, they could even use the static web app service for further optimization.
You suspect a VM is underperforming. How can you get a quick view of its CPU and memory utilization over the past hour?
I would navigate to the VM's blade in the Azure portal and select the Metrics tab under the Monitoring section. There, I can easily chart key performance indicators like percentage CPU and available memory bytes.
A security audit has flagged that several VMs have public IP addresses. How can we provide secure remote access without a public IP on the VM itself?
I would implement Azure Bastion. It's a fully managed PaaS service that you provision inside your VNet. It provides secure RDP and SSH access to your VMs directly through the Azure portal over SSL.
You have two identical web servers in the same region, and you want to distribute incoming web traffic evenly between them. What Azure networking component would you use?
I would use an Azure load balancer, specifically a public load balancer with a rule for port 443 that distributes traffic to a backend pool containing the two web servers.
An application's connection string to a database is currently stored in a configuration file. What is the best practice for managing such secrets in Azure?
The best practice is to store the connection string in Azure Key Vault. The application can then be granted a managed identity to securely retrieve the secret from the Key Vault at runtime.
Your organization has resources in two different Azure regions that need to communicate with each other privately. How can you connect the VNets in these two Azure regions?
I would use global VNet peering. This allows the virtual networks in different regions to communicate with each other directly over the Microsoft Backbone network.
A project has concluded, and you need to delete all the associated resources. What is the most efficient way to do this?
The most efficient way is to delete the resource group that contains all of the project's resources. Deleting the resource group will delete all the resources within it.
Your organization wants to enforce a rule that no one can create VMs of a certain expensive series. How can you enforce this across your subscription?
I would use Azure Policy. I would create a policy definition that denies the creation of virtual machines if the SKU belongs to the specified series, and then assign this policy to the desired scope.